Hello, today we're making homemade pizza dough, which is actually a very simple recipe. It just has water, yeast, sugar, flour, and salt. So to start, put a cup and a half of warm water in a cup with a teaspoon of yeast and a quarter teaspoon of sugar. Mix it up, let it sit and until it gets foamy like that. And that's how you know that the yeast is active. And just put that into the bowl of your mixer. And we're going to use the dough hook today. So we're going to put that on. And then you're going to mix 4 cups of flour. I use unbleached flour. 2 teaspoons of salt. Whisk those together. We're going to turn on our mixer. We're going to raise our thing up. Turn on our mixer to incorporate the flour with the water and the yeast. So we're just mixing this on low speed. So all the flour is incorporated with the water. It takes a little while. You have to be a little bit patient. So when the dough looks like this, it's all gathered in a ball. You're going to turn off the machine. You're going to lower the bowl here. You're going to loosely cover this with a damp towel. And you're going to let it sit for 5 minutes. And whenever you're making bread dough or pizza dough and you want the dough to be chewy, letting it rest periodically in between the kneading is what helps to develop that texture. So we are going to wait 5 minutes and just let the dough rest like this. In the meantime, I'm going to measure out my flour for the next batch, because one batch isn't quite enough for everybody. And I'm going to make the flour kind of loose in there and just scoop it up till it's overflowing and level it off. We need 4 cups. A lot of people weigh their flour. I don't do that. 2 cups. Three cups. And 4 cups. So to the 4 cups of flour, we're going to add 2 teaspoons of sea salt. Oh, like a friend of mine says, it's always sea salt. Whether they call it sea salt or not, it came from an ocean at some time or another. Okay, so our dough has been resting now. And it's time for us to knead it again, and it's really nice on a KitchenAid mixer because all you got to do is just turn it back on. Whoa, that's a little bit too fast. Oh, and I forgot to turn this on. And you're going to do this for about 2 minutes. And if it starts to get too sticky, you can add some more flour. But this actually looks pretty good. Keep an eye on it. So this looks just about right. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to stop it, just turn it out onto a board while I make the other batch. nice, beautiful elastic gel. And then I just like to knead the two things together. So we're now going to make our second batch. You don't have to record me doing this.
Super real. Super real. Whoa, I'm cooling. How are you so bad with this? Stop, stop.
No, and then there's a thing in the back that goes.
What are you talking about?
There we go.
There, finally.
Okay. So there's the dough hook.
Take 3.
Okay, so now we're up to about our second batch. Again, it's 1.5 cups of water mixed with a teaspoon of yeast and 1/4 teaspoon of sugar. And we let that sit and proof, make sure it's all bubbly. And then with the machine on low, we're going to add our 4 cups of flour that have 2 teaspoons of salt in it. You'll find this is the basic recipe, but depending on the moisture in the air, the temperature of the air, it could take more or less flour or water. It just kind of depends. So on low until the mixture all comes together. And then we're going to let it rest for 5 minutes. Knead it 2 minutes more, and then turn it out onto the board. So just about all the flour is now incorporated, and we almost have a nice smooth dough. And once we get there, we're going to let the dough rest for about 5 minutes. And from what I've read and been told, that's to let the glutens and the flour develop. And when you let the dough rest and then knead it, and let it rest and then knead it, that's what helps you to develop that really wonderful kind of chewy pizza dough that everybody likes. So that's it. So again, take a damp towel, just kind of cover that up, and we're going to let it rest for 5 minutes. So our dough has rested for 5 minutes. And now we're going to knead it again for another 2 minutes. A little bit faster. And you can see the dough, if it gets too sticky and starts riding up on the dough hook, kind of like it's doing now. You just want to sprinkle in a little bit more flour. We're almost done, and then we're going to turn it out on a board, and I'm going to show you, if you want to knead it by hand, how to do that. done. Lower this. Take out our dough hook. Or not. So this is my other dough that's been sitting here. I'm just going to combine the two. I'll show you how to knead them by hand if you want. Some flour on my hands. Kind of flour all the surfaces. And kneading is a lot of fun. And you really get to feel how the dough's alive. So you kind of fold it and push it, and fold it and push it. We're just going to do this for a little bit until the two things of dough are all nice and combined. But you can make this if you don't have a mixer. You can make it by hand. You just mix up the dough and the water until it forms a nice dough. Still let it rest and then knead it for 5 minutes. Or knead it for 2 minutes like this, which is actually nice to do. Okay. Then I'm going to just, rather than using a clean bowl, I just use the same bowl. Put a little bit of olive oil in there and kind of coat the pan. Put the dough down in here and kind of mush it all around. Here you turn it around so the whole surface is oiled. Take some plastic wrap and put it over. We're going to let this sit at room temperature for about a half an hour. Then put it into the refrigerator and it's going to rest overnight. And we'll see what it looks like in the morning. Okay, this is the fun part of making the dough. You take it out of the refrigerator. It's been in there overnight. And you punch it down. You hear that? It's really fun. And then you just fold in the sides like this. 3, kind of 4 turns. And then you just, I always like to roll it back over. Put it like that. And then we're just gonna cover it up again and put it back in the refrigerator for at least 4 or 5 hours. But it could go in again if you wanted to until tomorrow. It doesn't much matter. Okay, so now it's time to assemble the pizza, which is the fun part. So the dough, we took it out of the refrigerator this morning, as you remember. We punched it down, we folded it over, we put it back in the refrigerator for about 4 hours. And we took it out and cut it into pieces like this to let it come to room temperature and start to raise. So we're going to make a variety. The first variety that I'm going to make is a wonderful potato pizza. And I'm just making sure that it gets flour all around it. I do it on a piece of parchment paper. Then it's easy to transfer that to the oven. And we're just going to roll this out. And we first had this pizza when we were in Rome a few years ago. We were leaving our hotel for the airport, and I told the kids to go down the street. There was a little shop with a whole bunch of different pizzas in the window. And I told them go down and get some of each. And we took them in the cab, and when we got to the airport, the line was really, really long to go through immigration. And we sat in line and ate our pizza. It was so good. And this was one of the ones that we had that we had never had before. So we tried it for the first time. And everybody liked it. And we've been making it at home ever since. So you just kind of roll out the dough, kind of thin. Keep moving it around. And it doesn't stick to the parchment paper, which is nice. So we're just going to make it nice and even. Like that. So that looks pretty good. And then we are going to drizzle some olive oil on here. And brush the olive oil on. Don't need a whole lot. More. Make sure it goes all the way to the end because we're going to put the potato all the way to the end. So that's that. And then what I have done earlier is I took some nice fresh potatoes and I sliced them real thin and I cooked them until they were just tender in boiling salted water. And let them drain real good, come to room temperature, and then you're going to spread these all over the pizza. This was just about 3 small finger-length potatoes. It doesn't really take much because you're slicing them pretty thin. The fresher the potatoes, the better it tastes, so we try to get ours at the farmer's market, and that's where these are from. And believe it or not, they do have a better flavor. Other people make these look prettier than I do, but that's the way it is. So after you have the potato all on there, then you want to take some rosemary, and in the summertime, of course, we use fresh rosemary, but this time of year we only have dried. And so you're only going to use about that much. And you're going to crush it up and just sprinkle that all over the pizza. And this would qualify as a vegan pizza because there's no dairy on it. So this is for Allegra, who's now a vegan. So you want to put that on, and then you're going to sprinkle it with some coarse sea salt. Now you did put water or salt in the water when you boil the potatoes, so don't go overboard with the sea salt, but it adds a nice texture on top too. And then you're just going to drizzle it with more olive oil. And actually I'm going to put it in a bowl and do it this way. And you want all those potatoes then to get a nice light coating in the rosemary with olive oil. We don't know the name of this pizza, we just call it potato pizza, but I'm sure it has a name. It is really, really good the next day. If you have any leftover, you make eggs for breakfast and use the pizza as pieces of bread and make an egg sandwich. It's really good. It's really delicious. So it's now ready to go in the oven. And in the oven I have a pizza stone and it's been heating in there for about 30 minutes at 500 degrees. Put it as high as your oven can go. And then I'm going to try to get this in here without dropping it. And that's where the parchment paper helps. So now it's in there on the stove. Close the oven. Okay, so you're doing a lot to make sure that you have a nice crispy crust, so when you bring it out of the oven, you don't want to let it sit on the parchment paper to cool because it'll trap in the moisture and it'll get all soggy. So I have a pot, just a plain pot, and I put either this rack or this rack on top, and it's perforated. And then, as I take this out of the oven, I'm going to take it off of the parchment paper. It comes off. And you're going to lay this piece right on top of there. Cool. Take out that parchment, and we're going to put in another one that I've prepared. This one is just with sausage that I browned and some mozzarella cheese. And with some of these, what I do, depending on how your oven's working, is I partially bake the crust a little bit, just on the bottom, on, again, a piece of parchment on a cookie sheet, because sometimes, depending on what the toppings are, the cheese will get too brown on the top by the time the bottom cooks. So we're going to leave that one in. But for this next one, we didn't pre-do the crust. This is just, again, dough spread out. We put olive oil on top. And I have these slices of tomatoes that I just sprinkled the cookie sheet with olive oil. I laid slices of tomato on there and just let them bake a little bit. It gets some of the moisture out of the tomatoes, so it's not so soggy. And I sprinkled them with oregano and basil, dried oregano, dried basil. Because this is winter time, so we don't have fresh herbs. But if this was summertime, I would have just done the summertime tomatoes plain, and then we would be putting basil on top. So you put the tomatoes around, and on this one, we're going to put fresh mozzarella that I've sliced. This is one that Emma likes, and Christian. And again, if I had fresh basil, I would be putting that on top. Slice these. We're just cutting about a eighth of an inch thick, but it's really to taste. The other ones that we're going to make are, we have some more sausage. Again, this is what the sausage looks like. I just browned it and drained it yesterday. We have some portobello mushrooms that I sauteed in a little bit of olive oil. So we're going to make a sausage, mushroom, and cheese one. And then I have one more piece of dough. So I'll probably make one with pepperoni.